If you're coming from a gas 450 or even a 300 two-stroke, let me just rip the Band-Aid off. This bike will ruin your internal dyno. The first time I twisted the throttle, technically a potentiometer, but old habits die hard, in the 60 HP setting, I nearly looped it. Not because it's uncontrollable, but because the torque is instantaneous. There is no rev up, no clutch slip to manage, and absolutely no mercy. The Stark Varg EX is the enduro-focused version, meaning it comes with a kickstand, an 18-inch rear wheel for better tire sidewall flex, and slightly different software mapping for range. It is not a toy or a mountain bike with a motor. This is a factory-level motocross weapon that just happens to hum instead of scream. Frame and build quality. When you first unload it, the Varg feels dense. At roughly 260 pounds, 118 kilograms, it's heavier than a KTM 450 SXF on the stand. You feel that heft lifting it off the truck. But here's the magic trick. The second the wheels are turning, that weight vanishes. Because there is no rotating crankshaft, no piston flying up and down, and no gearbox spinning, there is almost zero gyroscopic inertia fighting you. The bike tips into corners with the agility of a 125cc two-stroke. The build spec is undeniable. You get top-shelf KYB suspension, arguably the best stock suspension on the market, Brembo brakes, and a chassis that feels stiff but compliant. The dashboard is actually a ruggedized smartphone that Stark calls the Arkenstone. It locks into the bar pad and acts as your display, tuning tool, and GPS. It feels futuristic, though I do worry about smashing it on a rocky enduro tumble, despite Stark's durability claims. Ride experience. The ride quality is dominated by the KYB suspension and the electric powertrain. Suspension and handling. On technical trails, the Varg EX floats. The lack of engine vibration reduces rider fatigue significantly. I found myself riding 20 to 30% longer sessions simply because my hands weren't going numb. The lack of clutch lever and foot brake means you can grip the bike harder with your legs and focus entirely on line selection. The 18-inch rear wheel on the EX soaks up square edge hits better than the 19-inch MX version, finding traction in places where my gas bike usually deflects. Motor performance. The app allows you to simulate the power curve of a 125 two-stroke or a 600cc four-strokes equivalent. I spent most of my time in a custom 45 HP setting with high regenerative braking. The regenerative braking acts like engine braking, but it's smoother. You can dive into a corner, let off the throttle, and the bike settles the front end perfectly without touching the brakes. But the traction control is the standout feature. It monitors rear wheel spin milliseconds faster than a gas engine ever could. On slick, wet routes where I'd usually be feathering the clutch and praying, the Varg just hooks up and propels you forward. It feels like cheating. Motor and battery. Here is the reality of the EX battery range. Stark claims up to 6 hours. In the real world, hard enduro technical single track, I got about 3.5 to 4 hours of riding. This is stop-and-go technical work where you're not wide open. Fast flow track pace, expect 45 minutes to an hour. Fire road cruising, you might hit that 5-hour mark if you stay slow. For 90% of riders, 3.5 hours of hard riding is more than enough to exhaust you. But if you're the type of rider who does 80-mile loops in the desert or all-day mountain adventures without returning to the truck, this bike is not there yet. Charging takes about 1 to 2 hours on a 220-volt outlet, which is fast, but requires infrastructure. If you're at a track with no hookups, you need a gas generator, which, ironically, brings the noise and fumes right back into your pit. Limitations and trade-offs. The biggest adaptation is the lack of a clutch. In hard enduro, we use the clutch to pop the front wheel up over logs or rock steps. On the Varg, you have to relearn this using throttle blips and body weight. It's doable, but the first few rides feel clumsy in rock gardens. Also, the silence is a double-edged sword. It's amazing for not annoying neighbors, but on shared trails, hikers and other riders do not hear you coming. You have to be hyper-aware of your surroundings because you are effectively a stealth missile. And finally, price. The Varg EX is a premium product with a premium price tag. You aren't just buying a bike, you're buying into an ecosystem that requires high-voltage charging solutions. Final verdict. Buy this bike if you ride on private land, local tracks, or dense woods where noise is an issue. If you're a vet rider looking to extend your riding years with less fatigue, or a racer who wants the absolute best technology available and rides loops under 50 miles, this machine is superior to a gas bike in almost every performance metric. Skip this bike if you are an adventure rider doing long-distance dual sport days, or you rely heavily on clutch-popping techniques for extreme enduro and don't want to relearn your skills. Also, if you don't have access to 220-volt charging at home or a generator for the track, the logistics will frustrate you.